Hello, so my name is Edward Walker. This is my story. It started out in 2001. Well, most recently, I was sentenced in 2019 to a term of 15 years in Charles County, Maryland, and then sentenced to a consecutive 7 years in Howard County, Maryland. The goal, these charges were brought on by the federal government. They wanted my cooperation in the case, and I refused to cooperate. And the way that it was explained to me is they did this in order to gain what was called leverage over me, in order to coerce me into cooperating against a sitting county official who was a part of the county government. And again, I refused to, and this is what happened. My charges are for murder, rape, theft, anything. I had a bad check charge that I owed a fine for. And all I had to do was pay restitution. My agreement was to continue the restitution until the fine was paid. And you would think, well, for that amount of time, it must be for an astronomical amount of money. Well, it was $5,000 owed to a music store. And that was the only legitimate charge that I had. They gave me 15 years in Charles County. They gave me a consecutive 7 years in Howard County. And through advocating for myself and advocating, I wrote and sent out 145 packages that look like this. And eventually, lots of prayer and lots of fasting, God hooked me up, and I ended up with getting a court date. And both sentences were overturned. It's unbelievable. After being advised by private counsel and public defenders that I should just prepare for parole and sit down basically and take the charge, I wouldn't. What they did was piss me off, and that made me start writing. And I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. I spent day and night writing. Now that it's been corrected, I'm at a loss. I'm in a wheelchair. As you can see, at the time of my being arrested, when they kicked in my door, I sleep in an upright chair because I've had 2 surgeries on my spine. One here, one lower. And I've had no treatment, no nothing. Again, all as a part of them wanting to gain leverage. So now I sit in the county jail because I was released immediately after both of those cases were overturned. One overturned January 4th, the other overturned February 9th. I was released on February 13th from from DOC, what do you call it? Whatever that acronym stands for. I was released from DOC custody February 12th of 2021. And now I sit in the county jail because the federal authorities who created this debacle, they ran their sentence concurrent with the state sentence, but now they're giving me a hard time and saying that the language for it running concurrent is not what they meant for it to be. So as they iron out the paperwork, I guess is what they want to call it, I'll be sitting here still. So my public defender has filed a frivolous motion asking the judge to amend the judgment and commitment, and that can't happen. Only the Supreme Court can amend the judgment and commitment once you've been sentenced, or Court of Appeals rather. So again, I had to advocate for myself, and the Lord led me to, write another letter, another motion on my own behalf. So I'm awaiting to see how that turns out. And that's where I stand. But my story starts from 2001. In 2001, I was convicted illegally, wrongfully again. And I was sentenced to 6 months for carrying a pistol without a license, a legally registered firearm. I'm a member of at that time, United States Army National Guard. I was stationed with the DC Guard, and in a room next to me, a young lady was in a fight with her then boyfriend. I ran to her aid. We called the police. Police came. I was arrested because they thought that I was the assailant. It was later ironed out that I was not the assailant. They apologized later, but nevertheless, they charged me with carrying a pistol without a license. As that charge went to get no paper, a family member of mine was under investigation, and federal authorities wanted my cooperation in that case, of which I refused to cooperate. Of course, the tragedies of 9/11 happened. I had a court date for 9/14. I appeared in court a few days before in full breath, meaning uniform, and the judge had already continued my case. Unbeknownst to the marshals and the federal authorities, they appeared in court on the day of and found out that the judge had continued the case. And in their anger, came to get me from my unit, where I was the CO's driver, and I wasn't there. Of course, I was out driving, and I had what was called mandatory leave. I had to take a mandatory 8 hours because I had been working nonstop since we had gotten activated for 9/11. So they took what was called the sign-in sheet. That sign-in sheet gets turned in by me. At the time, I was the NCOIC. That sign-in sheet didn't contain my signature. The judge saw that and was immediately angered because she felt that she had been taken advantage of. And they charged me with BRA and sentenced me to 6 months for the firearm and a consecutive 18 months for the BRA. While serving the time, I started advocating way back then, found out that the 18-month sentence was in fact an illegal sentence. And I started writing, and lo and behold, they ended up correcting the sentence. I didn't find that out until later, though. I didn't find out that that sentence was illegal until 2007. And in 2007, the federal authorities, I owned a car dealership on St. Barnabas Road. One of my clients had done some illegal transactions, and the federal authorities raided my dealership for this illegal transaction that the client took part in. And they charged me with a felon in constructive possession of a firearm. So I didn't have a firearm on my person, but my home contained the legally registered firearm. So they charged me with the felon in constructive possession of a firearm. They used to do that the illegal 18-month sentence from 2001 to charge me as a felon. I don't find this out again until later. Later, I find this out. So I served both those sentences in full, the 2001 sentence, 2007 sentence. When I come home in 2008 now, I'm going about my life, and lo and behold, I find out that there's a warrant for my arrest. So I go to the PO's office, and I'm stuck. I don't know why, but I have a warrant. Lo and behold, the 2001 sentence was violated by the 2007 sentence. So this judge who issued the illegal sentence the first time violated me with the probation violation for the 2007 sentence, and lo and behold, all over again, I go back to jail. Now I'm pissed off, and now that's when I start doing the homework, and I find out about the 01 sentence being illegal. The 01 sentence, the maximum that they could have given me was only 12 months, not 18 months. So that year and a day that I would have served, or that 1 year that I would have served, would have been considered a misdemeanor time, or would have been considered misdemeanor time and not felony time, thus making the 2007 sentence null and void because I'm no longer a felon. So that's when I began writing and advocating and got all of this stuff corrected, backdated, and the whole 9 yards. So now, as I sit, it's this same 2001 sentence that was considering me a felon that has the feds charging me again as a felon in constructive possession of a firearm. So now this homework starts all over again. And it's so redundant and so frustrating, but this is what we deal with. And if you don't advocate for yourself, you'll end up busted up and by yourself and serving all of this time. So my message is to fight for yourself, because if you won't fight for yourself, man, and you don't get in that law library or try to do some homework about what you're going through, you're gonna end up in a bad place like this. Fortunately for me now, it'll work out good that the light at the end of the tunnel says that I'm able to, pursue civil action against all of this stuff. So, as I cross that bridge, I guess we'll see what will happen. But my family, my children, all the stuff I've missed, all the graduations and proms, and it's cost me more than one marriage. It's been a bad time. I'm not against the law. I'm not professing that, people should go out and frivolously damage the law and not have a regard for it. That's not the motive, or that's not the message here. The message is, if there's some wrong being done, either you're a civilian or a citizen, or if you're a lawmaker, if you're enforcing the law wrongfully, then you should have to answer the same way an ordinary citizen would. And wrongfully charging a person is wrong. Wrongfully convicting a person is wrong. And there's no accountability for people who do that. And that's not fair. It's not right. So some type of way, that's why we appreciate the People's Power Assembly for helping tell stories like mine, to make people aware of situations like this. And that there are people out there who want to help us fight, because people in position to enforce the law wrongfully is just as bad as the people who are breaking the law. The two go together, and they should be punished the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. You can continue to record. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about your family. I know that you have a very supportive family. It sounds like you've been through a horrendous process. I'm sitting here looking at you, and you are, you have so much life and struggle in you. I'm just amazed, that you're not beaten down by all this injustice. That's number one. But I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your family, and also really important to us too is the conditions in the jail right now. Are you all right? Is your health all right? Any other messages that you'd like to get out? Because I know that's been one of the major grievances that we've heard from people incarcerated, that, they're not getting, a vaccine if they want it, or, they're not getting proper PPE, proper hand soap, et cetera, but really, our hearts go out to you in total support. It just sounds like one of the most incredible stories. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that end of it, that would be helpful.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first, Ms. Black, thank you very much for giving us, people in my position, a platform to kind of sound off about the stuff that's wrong. It's not been easy, especially for my family. My children have had to deal with me being away for the better part of their lives, and I can't mask the pain all the time, Ms. Black. But I can't let them see me break either, because that would mean that I'm losing. And in fact, God is helping me win. There's a song from a gentleman by the name of Smokey Norfolk that says that, at times I almost gave up, but then I realized that one day it's all going to be worth it. So, excuse me. I know that God kind of has a way that we don't understand, regardless of what your religion is. You know, there's one God who gives us all breath and life, even the bad people. So he said that it was okay for me to go through this. You know what I mean? And he's given me support and strength because it's been really hard, Ms. Black. You know, I just left Jessup and I was with patient 0 at Jessup Correctional Institution. And patient 0 happened to have slept a few doors down from me. I don't know if it's okay for me to use his name, so I won't. I don't know how he would feel about that, but he contracted COVID from a staffed employee or a contracted employee, and it wasn't at any fault of his own. And, you know, as they began locking down the institution and on, you know, there was one wave of it that hit JCI, and then, you know, they began issuing the guards PPE and not the residents who were there. And you know, the residents there were in no way at all responsible for COVID entering the facility. You know, the jail had gone on lockdown since November the prior year. Thanksgiving was the last contact that any resident had with the outside world. And there was no case of COVID at all on the compound. And then once it hit, you know, it went crazy. You know, I've watched more than one person lose their life from COVID. You know, it's not fair, you know, and the unfortunate part is the staff just use this as another reason to be mean and cold to the residents, and, you know, as though they did something wrong. We did nothing wrong. And rather than reward the benefit of and the understanding of the residents having to deal with now losing touch with their family for months, now over a year, no physical contact with family members, and the normal life as to what little life that they could get used to behind, you know, a locked in situation, that now also has been interrupted. You know, they used to have the gym and barbershop and, you know, things that would kind of make the tension be less than, but now that's even been taken away. So it's not a good position for the residents, you know, behind COVID. And we understand that it's a pandemic. It's the world is affected by it, but, you know, it's, instead of it being looked at in any form of empathy toward the residents who now had to go without, they've not used it that way. They've used it as a way to just be meaner to the residents and just be less and less empathetic. Hey, if you don't put the mask on, you're gonna get locked down, you're gonna get a fine. You should have been saying that to your coworkers before all the mess came into the residents, because the residents have the herd immunity and they've been okay. Even now, you know, the residents don't have any contact with anybody except the staff. So to treat them some type of way that's demeaning even more toward them, it's not right. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not right. I don't know how many times to say that over and over again. And they've tried as best they can. This is what they issue us. And at JCI, they issue one that's made out of cloth. That's just as bad. But, you know, what can we do? We don't have a voice for anybody. And the court, unfortunately, is so backed up, and that part becomes even more frustrating because the guys, like myself, I don't have an outlet. We can't see and touch our families. Here at the county jail, they haven't had even the blessing of a Skype visit or anything. They haven't seen their families since this lockdown has gone on. PG County has not updated their technology to allow people a Skype visit or a video conference or anything with their family members. So there's some guys here who all they have is they do allow us 3 free phone calls a day, but that's it. Some family members who don't know how to accept the calls and on because there are some elderly people here, and some people have elderly people at home. Without the link between one to the other, there's, some people haven't spoken even with their family for years. Since the pandemic has started. Well, I shouldn't say years, months, eons long since the pandemic has started. So it's
been a year. It's been a year.
Well, it's been a year and 2 months here in PG County. But,
right.
So it's the months that these guys haven't seen their families. All we can do is just pray and try to stick together. You know what I mean? It's pretty frustrating.
It's really wild how universal the complaints we have are. Like, I've heard from prisoners in Hagerstown, North Branch out in Cumberland, same complaints. Lack of access to medical care, terrible PPE, staff bringing it in, and treating the prisoners even worse, even though they're the ones getting them sick. I mean, just a total failure. It's really an intentional failure to handle this in any way, because in their minds, the residents don't deserve to be treated like humans, like men and women anymore. And they're the ones who brought COVID into the prisons. It's really insane. It's insanity. Not only is it unjust and unfair, inhumane, it's just insane. So I really appreciate your vulnerability to tell your story and to talk about those conditions, man. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, we appreciate, again, people like yourselves, man. Because we have no voice. Our voice has been completely silenced. And places, again, like JCI, they just use this as a way of just being absolutely mean to people. So they'll have a staff member call out, or they'll be short with their staff, and the immediate thing is to take it out upon the residents. Well, just lock them in. Just, hey, put your mask on. It's just so wrong how they do and how they've done. And again, the residents have had nothing to do with the influx of the virus to the institution, because the residents have not left the institution, not the court, not had any contact with anybody except the staff. And it's not fair. It's not fair how they treat the people. And I don't know how to say that more than those ways. It's just not fair.
Well, let me just say this. I'm kind of half looking at the time, but I'm sure that we'll get another opportunity. Alec Summerfield is an attorney here, and we're going to have to do more interviews with you, if that's all right, to keep in touch with you. I was going to say, can we be on your visitors list? But yes, you're right.
We don't have
getting visitors, unfortunately. I do want to tell you that I'm going to be reaching out to your daughter. And, she had called. We got behind we had some, there's a lot of other stuff that's going on right now. I don't want to get into it because your situation is certainly more compelling than anything that we can tell you about the outside, other than to let you know that there's a major emergency response protest that's going to take place around the case of George Floyd and also Dante Wright. Probably you're getting some of the news inside the jail about the police terror cases that are going on. So there's a major march that's being planned and a lot of work being done on that. But I do want to say that doesn't make it any less compelling what's happening inside the jail. And that when I see your daughter, I speak to her, I'm going to tell her that you're looking good, that you're strong.
Yeah.
You look better than I thought you could ever look.
Yeah.
All that's done, all the injustices that you've endured. But I will give her that message. I promise that. I know it's like a tremendous hardship not seeing her. And I know that you must worry about them and it must create tremendous pain. But I will tell her that you are strong and that you are holding up extremely well. That's my message to you. And, we're going to try to get out the video recordings of a lot of this, and we'll definitely stay in touch. But before we end, is there any last thing that you want to say? And I have a question, and it's because I don't have a legal background, and I might have missed it in your discussion, but do you have a projected end date to your sentence in terms of how much longer that you will be incarcerated, or is that a joke?
Well, I should have gone home on February 12th.
That's what I thought.
Yes, ma'am. What they are saying to me now, well, even if I were at the Bureau of Prisons compound or at a Bureau of Prisons compound, I would be released because they release you at 12 months so long as you earn CRC or halfway house placement. Well, I've not even had as much as a warning, so I've more than earned halfway house placement. I have to wait for a judge to rule on the handwritten motion that I have filed. So that'll happen, God willing, pretty soon. Because of my condition, the neurologist had planned to schedule surgery for me upon my release. So my need for surgery is beyond the word. So I've not had any rehabilitation or anything since my last surgery, and especially since being incarcerated. So now my condition has tripled over and gotten worse. So we don't know how much bad the last surgery has gotten and it's a mess today. So that said, Ms. Black, I don't know how soon. I could be as soon as this afternoon as far as my release goes. I won't know until the judge makes his ruling, but I could be in a halfway house now, or at least he ordered me to a nursing home. We're having an issue with locating a nursing home that will accept me during the pandemic. So past that, that's all. My family, I'd like to say, hey, y'all, God willing, I'll see you all soon. There's some fellas here, Mr. Jersey, and back at JCI, Mr. Bow, and Mr. Heavy, and Mr. Jim Brown, and Mr. Dave, and all those guys who were, a part of my prayer circle, Mr. Goo, they are still a part of you all, Mr. Rashid. You brothers are all still a part of my prayer circle. Mr. Barcia, Mr. Peanut, you guys, please stay strong out there at JCI. As far as the guys here in Upper Marlboro, Mr. Jersey, and all the rest of the guys here, Mr. T, Mr. Tone, I guess you guys please stay strong. There are some staff members, Ms. Black, who just don't like, the injustice. And, unfortunately, because of their jobs, they have to stand by. But there are several staff members, Ms. Black, who I want you to know all of them are not bad. From the Charles County Detention Center to here where I am in PG County Detention Center and JCI even, there are some people who are really, really good. And they don't like injustice. And they've hated watching me and my family go through this. So God willing, God has a reason for everything he does. We don't understand it because our stuff isn't supernatural like his is. So all things work together for our good. So that's how I smile every day.